Good morning, everyone. We'll start in a minute. We're waiting for some people to join. Good morning, good afternoon, and for some of us, good evening. We have many people connected throughout the world, and it shows that many of you are seeking information about today's topic. My name is Marcel Lang, and I'm the Managing Director of Epona USA. I want to welcome everyone to this ILTA Masterclass webinar on the use of GPT in contract drafting. The webinar is organized by Epona, a provider of Epona 365, a legal document solution on SharePoint Online using Microsoft 365, and Henchman, a provider of a contract drafting solution, which integrates with document solutions like iManage, NetDocuments, and of course Epona. Today is not about Epona or Henchman. We do not do demos, neither is a commercial presentation of our solutions. It's all about change in our sector. It's about GPT and contract drafting, and how some firms are using this today. We have scheduled an hour, but to try to wrap this up in about 30 minutes to leave enough room for questions. The webinar will be recorded and available to everyone to download. As said, today it's about change and about GPT and contract drafting. GPT is an advanced language model that has revolutionized the way we generate text, allowing us to create highly coherent and contextually relevant content in a fraction of time, and it will be using traditional methods. One area where GPT has shown significant promise is in the field of contract drafting. With its ability to understand complex legal language and generate highly precise and accurate text, GPT has the potential to significantly streamline the drafting process and improve the overall quality of legal agreements. The use of GPT or large language models in legal contract drafting is relatively new and rapidly developing field. And as with any new technology, these are concerns and considerations that need to be taken into account, when we're using it in a legal context. While GPT has shown great promise, it is important to note that it's not a perfect tool and can make mistakes. The quality of the output generated by GPT depends highly on the quality of the input data, the sophistication of the training algorithms, and the skill of the users who train and fine-tune the model. So what would be when you could extract and analyze clauses from your own contracts, living in the document management you're using today, like iManage, NetDocuments, or Epona on Microsoft 365, and also use GPT to support the contract drafting? This can be a very powerful tool for legal professionals, as it can help identify common language and patterns in contracts, extract important terms and provisions, and use it for drafting new contracts. That said, let me introduce you to Jorn and Siska from Henchman. Jorn will speak about the augmented lawyer, contract drafting, GPT and all its magic, and Siska will be your host for all your questions. This means please use your Q&A when you have questions. We will answer them during the webinar or come back to you after the webinar, but we will come back and try to answer all your questions you have.
All right. Thank you, Marcel. And hi, everyone. My name is Jorn. I'm the co-founder of Henchman. And today I want to talk to you about the augmented lawyer. And this is a lawyer that augments its, existing capabilities with the use of technology, and we'll dive into GPT a lot more today as well. And so before I want to, talk about technology, I want to talk about the market a bit. So we started Henchman in 2020, and last year we onboarded our first customer, and today we have about 120 different countries. So we grew fast, and we talked to so many legal teams, and there were three very strong forces at play during those conversations, and I wanted to share them with you as a basis for the remainder of the webinar. And so first of all, in the client-facing industry that we are, but also the service economy that we operate in, clients are definitely getting more demanding, right? Previously, during COVID, they would come by your law firm office, but nowadays they want to be served virtually. And there's a clear correlation, shown by Thomson Reuters, of client satisfaction and speed of service, quality of communication, efficiency, productivity, and that kind of elements. And then secondly, there's an undeniable war for legal talent going on, right? Not just clients are getting more demanding, so is talent. And so really, law firms are really trying to find the best ways, to fill in tools and expertise within the organization to, attract talent, retain talent, but also, get them ramped as fast as possible, make sure they get billable and at a certain quality level as fast as possible. And lastly, data. I mean, especially the last 8 months, I have to say, the legal teams that are really starting to think of and realizing that they're sitting on a lot of data, a lot of contracts, and they're really wondering, how can we use that? How can we use that as a lever, not just for our lawyers, not just, for, our legal teams, but also for our clients. And so, the teams that are obsessing about these forces are really, taking big steps from our experience. But of course, there's also teams that tend to ignore these kind of forces, and they tend to invoice low value tasks. They have no time, to update their templates. They don't have time to interact, with junior lawyers, so they don't ramp. And then, clients start to feel that. Clients start to feel that they're paying premium for, someone that they don't feel is helping their needs. And so they end up, those clients end up moving to law firms or, service providers that do take those elements into account. And of course, those are the ones that are winning today. And so it's the elements that we notice is that law firms that are winning at, playing into these forces are obsessed with client delivery. And in a way, lately, we feel like they're really starting to think about how knowledge management could be different, how instead of being something static, how it could evolve to something more dynamic. And most of them are already automating certain repetitive tasks. That's something that we see a lot, but obsessed about talent, obsessed. And so the red thread here is that they are really looking into the right tools, and most likely like yourselves as well, to implement within the organization. And this is a trend that will not stop. We really believe that we're going to embark on the age of the augmented lawyer, but more on that. But I can hear you think, I can potentially see you think, how can we keep up? Like, there's so much going on. There's so much that we need to look at. And it's true. I mean, we had a HR business, technology business as well, which was acquired in 2019. And I'm not saying that, people working in HR work less, but I have to say, I can compare, is that lawyers, legal professionals, they are the most busy people I've ever met in my life. It's crazy. So I get that you feel daunted. I get that, you get frustrated sometimes by, they're challenging another status quo. But I'm here to say, I'm not here to talk about, the death of the legal profession, right? Because you've seen plenty of those. I'm sure that some of your clients or colleagues might have sent you articles like that. But this has been going on for a while. I mean, this is an article from 1985 where Xerox was already working on, technology, building technology. And, we even found this article where there was a do-it-yourself divorce software on a floppy disk, right? So you could actually use that to get your divorce. But nowadays, unfortunately, there's still a lot of divorces, and there's still a lot of lawyers focused on that. So this has been going on for a while now. So rather than focusing on the negative, I really want to highlight the positive opportunity that we have here, where we can, as an augmented lawyer, we can really augment the capabilities we already have, and we really feel this is not stopping, and it's just begun. And so what does that mean, the augmented lawyer? Well, it's a lawyer that really focuses or tries to put more time in high value tasks. And those are the tasks that allow to create better services, to really build on the skills of interpretation and experience, and spend more time with your clients and whatnot. And so the augmented lawyer is a very proactive lawyer. It's a lawyer that makes very data-driven decisions, and she is an absolute expert in her field, right? And so there's a lot of room for technology to automate, certain tasks that are of a low value nature in a way, right? So luckily, legal professionals are not in a position of a cashier or, let's say a truck driver, where, that is definitely going to impact, their technology is going to have a big impact. But in general, I feel like, technology is not a means of mass unemployment. It's more of a something of a mass redeployment of what we're doing and what is necessary. And so if we look at law firms and legal teams, and what we're doing on a daily basis is that low value tasks are getting automated, right? So think of contract automation tools, but also think of GPT. We've all played around with it. I have it open every day, right? I use it to write small pieces of text, a LinkedIn post. I use it as an inspiration. And a lot of lawyers have done it as well, draft an email to your client, or get inspiration for a specific clause you have in mind. So that's happening. Like it's not really going to stop, right? So, but that gives us, great opportunity to focus on the high value tasks. And these are the ones that really set us apart. These are the ones that we can, use as almost eventually as a competitive edge against our competitors. And these are, as I mentioned before, the skills that, the tasks that require, the skill of experience and interpretation, of course. And we believe at Henchman, that assisting lawyers in these high value tasks, specifically drafting complex contracts and negotiating these, is really what makes us win today. And so I kind of want to ask a question, when we think of high value tasks, and when we think of enabling your data, like, who here can answer how many losses definitions they actually have at the firm, or which material adverse effect clause is most used in share purchase agreements at the firm or within their team, or even how many of your clauses contain a monetary threshold, right? But you can imagine that, having those insights could really, help you make better estimated decisions and really make you confident to provide the best service to your customer. So let's put the theory into practice for a second. This is the contract lifecycle, where you start from generating, you initiate a contract, you get a contract from the counterparty, let's say, all the way to storing it, to managing it, where the document management systems come in. So at Henchman, we're really obsessed about the contract drafting and negotiation, and the complex contract drafting and negotiation. So I'll kind of zoom in on that and explain to you how we see the role for GPT today, but also in the future. So first of all, when we dive into complex contract drafting, right, rarely people start from scratch. You might receive, as I mentioned, from a counterparty, a document. Most of the time they go from precedents, sometimes templates, but these are often not specific enough, or they're outdated a bit. But nowadays that AI assistant is getting in. So definitely GPT has, or large language models in general, have a big role and potential impact there, just to get you started. But of course, when we look at the precedents, that's where you need the precedents to tweak, the document you're working in, to tweak it to according to the needs of your client. And typically when lawyers draft contracts, they're looking for precedents. They open up a lot of contracts, a lot of folders, looking for that one clause they've once written. And if that doesn't work very recognizably, they'd start bothering a colleague, asking them, have you ever done something like that? And they have to go through that same process. And then, of course, secondly, we know it's there. We know there's that data. So how can we kind of unlock that collective knowledge and really make sure that the drafting quality increases, but also the consistency within the firm? And so I'll quickly zoom in on Henchman for us to understand how you can then kind of use GPT when drafting contracts. So Henchman consists out of 3 elements, each very technologically advanced, and then combined it really creates a very unique position in the market where, first of all, we connect to your database. But when we started, to start this business and building this product, we talked to so many lawyers, and there's 2 things that became very apparent to us. Is that, first of all, and I say with this with the utmost respect, is that lawyers are not the most tech savvy people, and as I mentioned before, they have very little time, right? And even if they set up a tool and it will change their lives, even that, they don't want to be bothered setting up, putting in a lot of information in order to have an ROI, let's say in 2 weeks time, right? So for us, it was essential that Henchman was of a plug and play nature where you just connect to, SharePoint, NetDocuments, Epona, iManage, and we take over, we mirror the permissions of your DMS. And so we automatically recognize contracts within your database. It doesn't matter, how messy or tidy your database is. And then from those contracts, we process out all the definitions, all the clauses, and we deduplicate those, and we present these within your trusted work environment, which could be Microsoft Word, can be Outlook, soon it's Teams. So to make it very concrete, imagine that you have like a small, maybe medium-sized firm. You have about 1.5 million files on your document management system. Henchman would typically recognize, let's say, 800,000 contracts. And in a matter of hours and sometimes days, we would process 13.5 million clauses from your database, 1.5 defined terms, which you can instantly access. But what's really interesting is that, as you can probably tell, is that most contracts, most clauses are quite similar. And in fact, only about, on average, 23% of clauses are only unique. Defined terms, it's a lot less, it's like 6%. So giving that intel to the end user, is really what turns lawyers into data-driven lawyers, because they can make better estimated decisions as they know in which situations what is common in the database, or which, what clause is an outlier and which one they have to watch out for, right? So in a way, Henchman allows them to do 3 things. So first of all, it allows you to really snipe for a clause you have in mind, applying certain filters, what type of contract, well, who created it, which client did we write it for, doesn't matter. Or you could just browse for what your colleague has written in the past, right? And then in the meantime, as I mentioned here, you can see how common is this within our database, really helping you to make those decisions when drafting and negotiating. And then, of course, secondly, you can review what you have in your document against what you have in your database. And you can really easily toggle and spot differences. And then, of course, lastly, the GPT bits, enriching your own database, right? Because, of course, we're all quite skeptic to sending, our data to GPT or any large language model. And then, of course, when something comes out, can we use this? But the way that Henchman does this today, we do this since January, so our customers love this. So the way we do it is help me write. Let's say you have a confidentiality clause, and we can say, make this clause that I know from my database, make it mutual because I want it like that. Or you could, make certain amendments to the contract. Let's say you found a clause that you like and it says seller, but of course, in your case, it's, sellers. So you want to pluralize that. You can easily select seller and it changes the grammar automatically. You proofread, boom, and you're good to go. And that's really just the beginning for where Henchman is going to apply, large language models and whatnot. And I think important to stress here is that there's a lot of talk about, large language models, GPT, and what the limitations are. It can hallucinate, of course. Is it trustworthy? Are we training that model and whatnot, of course? But then there's a lot of law firms thinking, okay, let's connect it to our document management system, and then it will, understand how we write and how, and that's true. So, it would produce something that would sound like what's been done at your firm. It would have that tone of voice of the firm and what you would want, but still it would, it's a generative model. It is a language model that is very good, super good at generating the next best probable words, right? It's incredibly good at that. But let's say you connect it to your DMS and it generates something, there's still going to be that insecurity. Well, can I use this? Or is this something that we've done in the past, in this case? Or is this been done by my, senior partner that I'm drafting this document for right now? And so you need that, confidence in making the right choices when you're drafting contracts. So you need that element of context within your workflow. You need that metadata to feed into that process, and your finesse as well, and the organization's finesse. And that's really where we see the holy grail of embedded AI, but generative AI, but also descriptive AI. And it's the path that we're going to continue following. So happy to talk more about that later on. And then I think, and this is really interesting, this is something that we discussed, we discussed a couple of weeks ago with the team, but this opens up a whole new world. Think of course, knowledge management, but like knowledge management traditionally is quite linear, right? We identify what are good best practices, we create a couple of playbooks, and then, a lot of great work has been done, but how do we enable our, legal teams? How can we make sure that they find what they're looking for? How can we make sure that they're doing what we want them to do in a way? Well, but by understanding the database, by understanding, the flow of information, what's being used, you unlock the potential of dynamic knowledge management, where, by first of all organizing and understanding the database, making that searchable, we could start by using large language models to, find similar contracts based on context as well. But also, smart inserts could nudge you because we understand, well, you're working on a solar deal. Well, 2 years ago, this was the solar deal. It could nudge you that case to you. And then, of course, by the insights and the patterns that we've identified over the versions of those documents, that feeds back in to the end user. So imagine, the knowledge management team is almost like a marketer, where, they have, when somebody's Googling something, you will have an advertisement on top as well, right? So, put up by Google, of course, by the, the people that try to sell you something. But in a way, you could think of the knowledge manager here as well, someone that wants to influence kind of the feed that you have in each of the cases that you're working on, without having to do much of the work or prep. So this is a really interesting field where GPT can have a major role, but also, understanding data and databases. I mean, I'll leave it at here because but I just wanted to share like where we've embarked on in the last 3 months, 4 or 5 months in a way, with GPT, and what we're planning to do in a way without, giving too much away, of course. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Jorn. And with that, we kick off the Q&A. Maybe if you don't mind, I'll start with a question for Marcel. What do you think document management systems like iManage NetDocuments and Epona can do when it comes to large language models, or should do?
Oh, great question. Thank you. So I cannot speak for iManage or NetDocuments, but probably they're all exploring this right now. They're waiting for with a good future, good functionality or feature inside their DMS solutions. Maybe we will see something at ILTA. I can although speak for Epona. Epona's DMS solution is completely running on Microsoft 365 and SharePoint Online, and it seems obvious that we are using Microsoft Azure OpenAI to build our features on. We are currently believers GPT is going to be the answer for many legal tasks, but right now I think it's still very limited. So don't get me wrong. I think the generative AI is the real thing, but it depends all about the data. So data could be, valuable in data sets, but only if the user asking the right questions. And, the question will also pop up, can we trust the answer? As a DMS vendor, I would like to have our DMS data set unlocked by AI, exactly what you're doing, maybe not for drafting contracts, but maybe more for auto-classifying, analyzing, extracting data, or something what Microsoft Syntax is already providing today with if your content is living inside Microsoft Online, or in this case Microsoft 365 Online. I think knowledge management, the thing you just mentioned, will be becoming very interesting. To have your data and your your LM data sets helping your attorneys. My 2 cents, and I don't know for sure, but I think iManage and NetDocuments are going to focus on this, as they have tons of data in their cloud. Knowledge management will become definitely an interesting area to watch. So for Epona, it's definitely on our focus list. So, we are natively inside SharePoint. We are in the Microsoft Cloud, so we can do everything over. So why not now? I would say security will be the the biggest challenge. The DMS vendors are facing with by incorporating AI. We are not only using public data sets, but also customer data inside your DMS. It means you need to think about is it protected, security stripping, ethical walls, all the kind of stuff.
Yeah. Another question that came in from Al was if the solution that was presented, if it's just mock-ups or actually in production. Maybe that's one I can answer as head of customer success. So as Jörn mentioned in the beginning, we have over 120 clients using Henchman across the world. So it's definitely in production, used by many lawyers. So another interesting question, and not sure who wants to take that one, but I think it's a good one from Octavio. How will a full Copilot integration with Microsoft affect the need for these solutions?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, that's I think probably on Henchman, or
Yeah, so I think Copilot for Microsoft is very similar to the use case of what I described when drafting contracts and using large language models such as GPT. It's getting you started. It's getting that first inspiration and then building on top of that and iterating on top of that. Like Copilot in for instance PowerPoint, you would be able to ask, can you make me a quick slide of a frog on with the title this and that. I don't know, I'm just thinking of something, but it would do that. So it would really give you that first push and get you going. But of course you would also always have to iterate a bit. So it will really make a lot of work a lot easier and quicker, for sure. It will have a great impact.
Yeah, and then to extend that one from a DMS point of view, I think Copilot is really great. It will be coming more and more. But Microsoft will not, going into your DMS to, extract everything from your DMS to do the same stuff. What, for example, parties like Henchman are doing. Microsoft will, of course, using Azure, Azure OpenAI, that you can build your own stuff. So probably, the iManage, the NetDocuments from this world will using that kind of, environment to grab that information. But again, it's all about what are you going to do with that information.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Thanks for your answers. I think there's one more technical question about Henchman, but I suggest that we tackle these questions in a separate conversation. Let's continue to talk about large language models. Are there any more questions? Because so far I haven't received any new questions, or maybe Jorn has a question for Marcel, or Marcel one for Jorn. And if not, we'll soon wrap it up.
Yeah, I see some questions popping up in the chat. About
yeah,
is there differentiate
indeed.
between the finished contract and the draft from Julie?
Yeah, so in a way, I think you've all experimented. The question is, will Henchman be able to differentiate between buyer favorable versus seller favorable language when using the drafting feature? Yeah, you could always try. I think I don't know if you've ever tried doing it with ChatGPT in itself, right? So you have a clause or a piece of text, and you could just say make friendlier or make more aggressive. And of course, it will generate something that is still subject to review, of course, but it will definitely kind of get you going and inspire you to move on and iterate. And so in a way, Henchman does that as well because we integrate with GPT. So yes, it does that.
So I've got a question. What about languages? Just, okay, so in the US, it's typical English, but over in Europe, we got so many languages out there. Are you supporting those? Can you grab the stuff also from a Danish kind of DMS or German or?
Well, I'll let Cisco answer that question. Yeah.
So from the start, it was one of the requirements by the team that we had to be language agnostic. So we're built to cover any language, and that's why we build up so many clients across the world in a short period of time. And I think that's an advantage because there's many tools who can automatically generate contracts, but it's always configured in only a few languages, whereas we recognize all languages and allow the users to search in their own language.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on copyright issues? I think that's an interesting one, and I guess it's linked to the use of large language models as well. Anyone who wants to answer that one?
Yeah, so there's definitely this is almost like a separate webinar, right? The copyright issues or objections that could arise. But I think in general, so we need to be aware of the fact that we're sending elements of our own clients to a system. So we need to make sure that when you work with any DMS or with Henchman, that you do the diligent research. And in the case of GPT, there's a lot of risk that it might be used to train a model, it's stored somewhere and whatnot. But of course, for legal and for sensitive information, there's the separate, API that OpenAI has built. So where it's not being used to train the model, but of course you're sending it somewhere to a third party. So that's definitely something to look into when you would embark on that. For instance, with Henchman, it's something that it's behind a feature flag, we call it. We can easily turn it off for our customers. And so most of our customers, love to have it on, but then they only send that one piece of text to, GPT or to OpenAI. So they're not sending their whole database, or we're not sending their whole database to GPT.
Yeah, and I think there as well, we're trying to ship ChatGPT in a way that is secure. Because if your users will probably use ChatGPT anyways in a less secure way outside of Henchman potentially or any other solution. We really want to guarantee that your data is not being used for training and so on. So do keep that in mind when you're assessing solutions as well, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think there I have another question for you, Jorn. With the new wave of LLM solutions in legal, what would your recommendation be for buyers who assess these?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's even internally, right? Where we're constantly thinking of what could we create out of this, but it's essential to think of what's the use case we're trying to, help or trying to improve. And I would say try to understand first what are the use cases, what are the pains we're trying to solve at our organization, map out vendors that you feel or that during your research kind of meet those meet those requirements, and then start talking to them, see some demos, do some pilots where possible. I would say.
Yep. Another question is about the geography that we cover. There's a person saying that it does not appear that we have clients in the US. Is that because there's any requirements making it difficult for a US firm to adopt? I think there the simple answer is that we just recently launched Henchman US. We already have a few clients. They are not on the website, but we're keen to talk to you in person to elaborate on that. And we'll soon add a lot more logos on there for sure. You want to add something, Jorn?
No, I'm reading the other questions.
Yes. It's a
I like the
very
one from
large
Paul.
question.
Yeah, I got a from Paul. I like that one. Are you also working for small data sets?
Yeah.
Not if you have
so
thousands of contracts.
It's like even if you would have read here 100+ for each type of contract, and it's I think even of 100 contracts, I think you generate about 4,000 clauses and definitions, right? So it's even very good to have, let's say you have your file of golden standards and you want to have those in Henchman, you know, it really enables your legal team to find, you know, the clauses they need from your golden standards a lot easier. So we have use cases of that as well. So it doesn't always have to be millions, right? A couple of
But
thousand.
you need to have a DMS, right? The DMS is kind of mandatory to have.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
All right. I think there's no more questions. So I guess we can wrap up.
Yeah, so thank you, Jorn and Siska, to give you your insights and experience on how firms are using GPT and contract drafting today.
Thanks.
You know, we hope everyone finds today information valuable to give you food for thoughts, because I think that's the whole idea of it. Definitely, if you want to have, you know, see more demos, real demos from Henchman, or you want to know something more of Epona, if it's on the DMS side, or using something with OpenAI and Azure on that level, just contact us. We will let you know as soon as possible when the recording will be available for download. And then I would say have a great rest of your day and hope to see you at ILTACon in August.
Thank you very much, Marcel.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.